Suzan-Lori Parks, you developed season 3 of the Genius anthology, and this season covers the life and career of Aretha Franklin. And of course, there are a lot of different ways of telling a biographical story. And for Aretha, you frame a lot of it by juxtaposing her career as an adult with flashbacks to her childhood, really contextualizing it that way. What made you decide to frame this story with that?
Well, the framing of the use of the childhood juxtaposed against the adult years is consistent with the Genius franchise. And what's amazing is that Genius, after celebrating Einstein and then celebrating Picasso, they invite Aretha Franklin to the table, which was such a huge game changer. And we discovered so much about what is a genius and what constitutes, genius, who deserves that title. Aretha Franklin definitely does. Using her childhood as a way to help tell her story, because so many of us, it was my case when I started working, when I started show running the show, so many of us know her songs, but very few of us know her story, and so the points of her story that she endured trauma in her life as well as a lot of triumph, but laying her childhood against her adulthood really helps tell that story and develops a deeper understanding of her genius.
And being the first woman to be chronicled by this series, and the first Black woman, the first Black person to be chronicled by this series, it feels incredibly fitting for it to be her. Like, it seems like, of course, you're thinking about, especially Genius in the 20th century. Right. It's hard to kind of beat Aretha, who is one of the few people on Earth who is known by one name. You know her by her first name.
Yeah, as we all know, there are many Black geniuses who have lived, but the great thing about Aretha Franklin is it allowed us to have conversations, like I said, about what constitutes a genius. And, so many people, when I was starting to put together the show, and I was reading everything I could find about her, I was listening to all her songs over and over and over. And she's a person, when I was growing up, I learned how to dance by listening to her. So my aunties would bring home the 45 records from church, and we'd all crowd around in the living room and they'd teach me how to dance. The Funky Chicken, for example, by listening to Spanish Harlem or whatever the song. But at the same time, it was very fitting for them to risk, if you will, embracing Aretha and inviting Aretha to the table, because again, people say, oh, she's a great singer, but is she really a genius? She's given us things that are enduring. Her way of making music is totally game changing. And
this being a limited series, 8 episodes long, you've worked in film and TV before, but I believe this is the longest kind of screen project that you've made. How does this challenge differ, and being a showrunner on top of it, differ from the previous work you've done in film and TV?
Before I was only, not only, but I was a part of rooms, dedicated writers who were toiling in the fields, and then doing, writing a lot of screenplays, and certainly a long track record in theater. So I've been doing a lot of dramatic writing on all fronts, really. But yeah, to put together, to be the head writer, the showrunner of an 8-hour, beautiful limited series, it's a lot. I can borrow from a lot of things that I've done before, like working in the theater, where you have to work very collaboratively with your whole team, your team of designers, your director, our primary director, our producing director, Anthony Hemingway. We worked very closely together. Our number one, Cynthia Erivo, we worked very closely together on crafting this beautiful story. We had a great team of folks like Tim Galvin, who was our production design guy, Kevin McKnight, our DP. So we had to work very collaboratively, and that I learned to do from working primarily in theater. And then you have to just have eyes everywhere, and we were working at this phenomenal speed. The trickiest thing that we had 2 things which I hadn't experienced in any kind of writing before. We had the cultural revolution, or the cultural reckoning, I suppose you'll call it, that happened last year in 2020. And we also had COVID, and those put very significant, those were very significant challenges in our production process. We went on hiatus on the 13th of May. I'm sorry, I blocked it out of my mind. The 13th of March, 2020. And we thought it was going to be for a couple of weeks, And then we came back finally in September to finish. We had 5 in the can, and we came back to shoot 6, 7, and 8. And with the COVID safety measures that everyone had to practice rigorously, because it really was safety first, we could no longer have like a huge choir scene, the choir bursts into song. That had to be very, very strictly organized and carefully organized. And then the cultural reckoning that happened, and we were very aware that we were making something not just for entertainment, not just to please and delight and rivet the audiences, but also to serve, to offer something to the world as evidence of our humanity, I think.
And of course, Cynthia Erivo is the centerpiece of this, playing Aretha Franklin. She herself is an iconic performer already, with her own tremendous singing voice. Was she always the choice? Like before, when this project was conceived, it was always going to be Cynthia?
She was always the choice. I've been a huge fan of hers for a long time. Of course, saw her on stage in The Color Purple, for which she won one of her Tony Awards. And she went to Brian Grazer tells a wonderful story from Imagine, Brian Grazer, and he tells a story about how she came into his office and just started singing. And he's like, oh, she's fantastic. The same thing happened on set. When she would sing, she did a lot of pre-records. And because what a lot of people don't know is, so there's genius, and then this time the genius is bursting into song, which adds a whole nother level of complexity to the production process. Cynthia would do pre-records at a location, before, and then she would come on, and she also wanted to sing live, which is a whole can of worms if you're not prepped for it. But we prepped thoroughly, and when she sang live on set, everybody, not only were we quiet, we're always quiet, right? But people stopped moving and just listened, so they could listen with their full body to her singing. It was absolutely exquisite, literally breathtaking. She was always our number one.
And the series tells her story through decades of her life and career. And really the capstone moment of the series is that 1998 Grammys performance. When she stepped in for Pavarotti. What made that a moment you wanted to kind of be the encapsulating end point for the story? And how is it putting that together? Because again, as you mentioned, it's a scene of her giving a performance on this grand stage, and it's COVID protocols when you're shooting that.
Exactly, and that scene we did shoot under COVID protocols. We, from jump, again, the series is about illustrating and demonstrating the genius of the main subject of Aretha Franklin. And that moment in 1998, when she took the stage for Pavarotti, who was too ill to come on stage and sing that night at the Grammys in front of 25 million people. That was a genius moment witnessed around the world. When she decided in her dressing room that she would go on stage and sing this opera tune. I remember sitting with my parents, because we were watching the Grammys. We'd seen her perform earlier that night, and we were sitting on the couch holding each other's hands, like, what is going on? That was one of the moments in the series where history was brilliantly and beautifully dramatic, where we just had to embrace that moment as one of the defining moments of her career. After that moment, she would go on to say that was a moment in her career that she was very proud of. But we watched in that moment Aretha take a very daring step and dare to sing opera in front of 25 million people. I just thought we had to see that recreated. And Cynthia did a great job with it, really beautiful.
And recently you also happened to write another project about a legendary Black singer, United States versus Billie Holiday. I'm wondering if this is a particular interest in like the lives of musicians, or if these projects just kind of happen to line up as well.
Yeah. The lives of amazing Black people is one of my things. The lives of brilliant, genius sisters, Black women is a passion of mine. And that, yeah, they happen. They, the Aretha came out, Billie came out. I mean, they were almost back to back. That I had been carrying in me the stories of these two women for all those years, developing them, writing them, rewriting them, um, being such a fan of both of those women, Billie Holiday and Aretha Franklin, and so much wanting to do them justice and allowing the world, helping the world to see their brilliance. It is a passion of mine to allow all people to be seen as we truly are, to tell the authentic story of someone maybe you just know of in passing. You know what I'm saying? We know a few things about Billie Holiday, but do we know a few more? And it was really my desire to tell the audience some really important things about her life, how she was one of the icons of the civil rights movement, for example, as was Aretha Franklin. Aretha's support of Martin Luther King and Angela Davis, which she could have just shut up and sang, but she didn't. It's very important to include that in the series.
Well, I want to congratulate you on your work on Genius, Aretha, and all of the great work you've done and are continuing to do. Thank you so much for joining.
Thanks, Daniel. Thank you.